When I think of burnout, because of course burnout is technically a term relating to work, I keep bringing up your previous book, Digital Minimalism, because I don't think it's just work that is leading to, maybe I broaden out the term from burnout, chronic overload and stress, which many people are feeling. Let's assume that work is frustrating and that we never feel that we've completed everything we've got to do, because there's always another email to answer, always something else that we could be doing, which is why, or one of the reasons that infiltrates our evenings and our weekends.
Yes.
Is it not also, though, that when we are trying to switch off and relax, we're overwhelming ourselves by being digital maximalists?
Yes.
So it's not just the work, it's that speed of life that we have at work, we're now taking into our relaxation time as well. So no wonder so many people feel, burnt out and overloaded.
Oh, I agree with that completely. Well, I mean, just to return briefly to what the mechanic is that's making the work particularly burning us out, and then I want to get to what's happening after work. The specific mechanic that's at the core of a lot of this is, I think of it as administrative overhead or an overhead tax, right? So as you say yes to more and more things, right? Everything you say yes to in a work context brings with it administrative overhead. Right. So I say yes on this project. We have to send emails about it. We have to do meetings about it. The thing that I think is particularly deranging for people is when they say yes to too many things. All of that administrative overhead builds up. It aggregates. And at some point you cross a threshold where all you have left is time to handle the administrative overload without actually getting to the actual projects itself. And then you fall farther and farther behind on the projects, right? So that's the mechanism, I think, that's driving the knowledge work burnout. More than anything else, it's the having too many things on our plate is creating the days of this sort of shallow busyness because you have to service the overhead.
So it's a kind of low-grade busyness that doesn't actually achieve the truly important things.
Yeah, and what's important, and I realized this working on this book, and I hadn't realized this in some of my previous work, right? So I wrote a book before this just about email. And I was saying, okay, this is really bad to switch your attention to an inbox every 3 minutes is bad from a neurological perspective. Our brain can't context switch that fast. It's going to exhaust your brain. You're not getting much work done. This is terribly unproductive. But at the end of that book, I said that the answer is to have different communication protocols that don't require being interrupted by messages. What I didn't realize back then is the reason why we're checking email so much is not just because we're choosing to do busyness instead of doing our work. It's because we said yes to so many things, and each of those things brings with it administrative overhead that cannot be avoided, right? That's how each of the items of work is coordinated, and it's adding up to a point where we have no breathing room left. There's no room left to say, hey, let's come up with a really smart process for how we're going to communicate on this project, because this project's one of 7, and they're all generating messages, and you can't keep up with it. You're drowning it. So the overload is what's generating the excessive busyness, was generating the excessive communication. So as long as we're doing too many things at once, our work is going to become increasingly more the busyness and less the actual substantive work. So the overload, I think, is the driving factor, is that we have too many things on our plate, at which point all we can do is handle the overload, and everything devolves into the communication. But I want to get back to your digital minimalism point, because I think you're absolutely right that technology is squeezing us from both sides of the work-life division. So we have what's happening in work with email and the overload. The way I think about what's happening at home is that when we have tools that are these attention economy tools like social media on our phone, for example, what they're doing is subverting very deep human drives. So we have these deep human drives that, if we follow them, help us be more fulfilled human beings. These tools hijack and subvert those for their own means. So like communication, we're super social. Like we're driven to want to communicate with our fellow humans. It's very important to us to be part of communities. Social media comes in and hijacks that drive. Oh, you want to communicate with people? Do it through this screen, right? And it feels enough. It's easier than actually talking to someone. It feels enough about it that we think we're being social, but we're not. And we get more strung out, right? What about the drive I've been thinking about recently, the drive to be a leader, right? We have this sense of, I want to be respected in my tribe. I want to be a leader of my family and my community and of my business. Social media can subvert that. No, be a leader posting things. You have this sort of fake community that you feel, and there's likes happening and people are reposting your things. And again, it subverts this drive that otherwise would have been used to do things that would have been really fulfilling. Like, I'm actually going to emerge as a sort of a person of standing in my actual physical community. So we get this again and again with these technologies, the drive to be, entertained with novelty, to go out and experience and be inspired by the world. Again, our phone is, no, we got a clip for you to look at. So it hijacks these drives.
Like food, right?
Food, same thing, fast food.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. Let me just grab whatever, a candy bar. It's hijacking the drive. In the end, you don't really get what you need and you get less healthy, but in the moment, it seems better. It's hyper palatable. So I think that's what's happening in our life outside of work. And so all of these activities that are hard but fulfilling, that make humans humans, are being subverted into these apps. They're being subverted into our phones so they can be monetized. And so we feel less rooted and more shallow because of that.
Yeah. In digital minimalism, you wrote a lot about solitude and the importance of solitude. And I think the definition you utilize in that book was freedom of input from other minds, which was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, why is solitude so important?
Yeah, because people think of it as physical isolation, which it's not, right? The definition of solitude that matters is you alone with your own thoughts, taking in the world around you and thinking about things, right? This is how people make sense of their lives in the world. You have experiences, that's step one. Step two, you sit there and you grapple with them, right? Because we build in our heads these sort of hidden schemas, these frameworks for understanding our life and our journey. What has happened to us? Where are we going next? How do we understand what's important to us and what's not important to us? All of that takes time in your own head, just thinking things through. What's going on? Why do I feel this way? What do I want to do different in life? So solitude is critical. Until recently, it was completely unavoidable. Right? You were just going to have time during your days where you were alone with your own thoughts because there was nothing else to do. You were in line at the store. You're just thinking. You're walking to, the underground or something. You're there with your own thoughts. Smartphones, ubiquitous high-speed wireless internet makes it possible for the first time in the history of our species to get all solitude out of your life. And I think it's a real issue because without the ability to make sense of our lives in the world, we feel unrooted. And that makes us more anxious. So then we hide even farther in the distractions of the phone. And that's not a cycle that ends up well.
Yeah.